Hello and welcome to TVB News. The Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority will launch the EMPF platform at the end of next month. That means workers don't have to go through different trustees for administrative tasks and can handle them all on one online platform. It is also expected to help slash administrative fees by up to 55% in 10 years. Jackie Lin with details.
23 years after the rollout of the Mandatory Provident Fund, a digital reform is on the way to streamline the management of workers' pension schemes. Currently, if workers have worked at different companies, they might have multiple MPF accounts under different trustees, meaning they have to oversee different accounts via different platforms. With the new EMPF platform, they can manage their accounts on a single platform starting June 26. 12 MPF providers and 24 MPF schemes will get on board the platform in batches. MPF holders can review the values of their assets as well as managing their funds on the platform. The EMPF platform can also automate the calculation of MPF contributions and remind employers of the contribution due dates. Currently, different trustees charge 0.17 to 4.32% of administrative fees per year. The Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority expects to slash the fees by an average of 36% in the first 2 years and up to 50% 10 years after the rollout of EMPF. Among the first companies to join the platform was YF Live. Its members or employers can register an account starting June 12. It's expected that before late 2025, all 4.7 million MPF holders and 360,000 employers will be able to use the EMPF platform. MPF Chairman Aisha McPherson Lau said there will be comprehensive data security measures in place for the digital platform. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The Inland Revenue Department is issuing more than 2.4 million tax returns for individuals starting today. That's around 40,000 more than the previous year. This, as authorities noted, salaries tax collection in the 2023-24 period broke previous records and reached a high of $79.9 billion. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The time for Hong Kong's employees and sole proprietors to file their tax returns is just around the corner. Starting today, the Inland Revenue Department will issue around 1.7 million tax returns in paper form and 670,000 in e-returns. The former must be filled before the deadline on June 3rd, while taxpayers will have an extra month before filing in their digital returns. Regarding this year's additional 40,000 tax returns, the Commissioner of Inland Revenue said it's partly due to the increased number of taxpayers.
And we also noticed that as at the 31st of March 2024, the number of businesses registered was 13,000 more than the year before, and we expect that there will be an increase in the number of taxpayers, which also contribute to an increased revenue collections in the coming year.
This, as authorities said, the salaries tax collections in the last financial year reached $79.9 billion. The figure is $400 million higher than that of the year before and set a new record high. A drop was noted in profits tax collections from $174.2 billion in the 2022-23 period to last year's $170.5 billion, which was a decline of 2%. The most drastic decline was in stamp duty collections, which decreased by $20.9 billion, which was a 30% drop from the prior year. The total amount of tax collected in the 2023-24 period was $342 billion, which is still a 5% decline on a yearly basis. The IRD said its estimate for total revenue collection will rise by 12% next year, particularly through increased stamp duty collection. The Inland Revenue Department reminded residents to stay alert of fraudulent emails regarding their e-tax accounts. The department stressed IRD emails do not include hyperlinks that require residents to provide credit card or bank account information. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Office of the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data says the Consumer Council has violated the Personal Data Ordinance. The incident involved a data breach last year, which affected more than 450 people when the council fell victim to hackers. After investigations, the privacy watchdog flagged 5 problems in the council's data security measures. Jackie Lin with details.
The Office of the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data released its investigation report on the cyber attack that targeted the Consumer Council last year. Hackers obtained the credentials of an administrator account on September 4th and accessed the Consumer Watchdog's network through a VPN or a virtual private network. About a week later, hackers launched a ransomware on the council's server and employees' computers, as well as their external data storage devices. The hackers stole about 1.5 gigabytes of data involving more than 450 people. They include the names, addresses, and phone numbers of 289 people who filed complaints to the Consumer Council, as well as 162 current and former staff members. Files were also maliciously encrypted. The reports found that the Consumer Council allowed staff to work from home during the pandemic. Because of resistance among staff and manpower shortage in its IT department, the Consumer Council did not enable multi-factor authentication for remote access to data even after the pandemic ended. That led to loopholes for hackers to exploit.
The cybersecurity solution was supposed to send an email alert to the council once it detected any cybersecurity attack. However, in this case, after the incident, the council discovered that the cybersecurity solution was not properly configured. And that was why, even though it detected the attack in question, the council only discovered the cyber attack on the 20th of September.
The Consumer Council meanwhile said the information was stored in the work computers of 2 staff members, including a document that analyzes complaint data. But the data breach did not involve credit cards or bank accounts. The Consumer Council described the impact of personal data leakage as very limited. But the privacy watchdog said the data breach has contravened the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance. It has issued an enforcement notice requiring rectification within 2 months, or the council could be prosecuted. The privacy watchdog also gave this reminder on data security to other companies.
I would strongly advise organizations and companies to enable their multi-factor authentication in any remote access to the information systems.
That means instead of relying on one password, a one-time password will be generated and sent to users through emails or SMS messages for access to the computer system. The Privacy Commissioner's office said that additional feature can enhance cybersecurity and protect against 99% of attacks. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The death toll from a collapsed highway in Guangdong province has risen to 48. 30 other people were injured. A section of the Meizhou-Dabu Expressway collapsed after heavy rain yesterday, sending at least 20 cars tumbling down a slope. The search effort was complicated by steady rain, as well as gravel and soil coming down at the site, posing risk to the workers. Rescue teams divided the area into 10 grids and searched with dogs, life-detecting devices, and excavators. Over 56 centimeters of rain has fallen in the past 4 years in the area where the roadway collapsed. That's more than 4 times the level last year. In the Solomon Islands, lawmakers selected former Foreign Minister Jeremiah Manale as the country's new prime minister. The new head of government has pledged to continue the Pacific Island nation's international policy that drew it closer to China. The withdrawal of pro-Beijing former Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare's bid to stay in office in order to make way for Manale is an indication the country could follow a similar direction. The Prime Minister was chosen in a secret ballot of 49 lawmakers, with Manale receiving 31 votes. Manale pledged to put his country's interests above all other interests and called on Solomon Islanders to respect the results. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Israel today, saying the country has made concessions which Hamas should accept. Blinken was trying to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The deal could see hostages released and an Israeli troop withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, with more aid getting to Gazans facing famine. David Garrett reports.
The US Secretary of State believes progress has been made. Antony Blinken departed Israel after his 7th visit to the Middle East since war broke out. He was trying to avert a planned ground offensive in the city of Rafah, a move the US says would endanger thousands of war-displaced Palestinians sheltering there. The US also wants Israel's help to get more aid into the enclave. With more than 34,000 killed, anger has intensified at home as the US supports Israel in their objective of destroying Hamas.
Israel has made very important compromises in the proposal that's on the table, demonstrating its desire and willingness to get this agreement and get it done. Now, as we've been saying, it's on Hamas. Hamas has to decide whether it will take this deal and actually advance the situation for the people that it purports to care about in Gaza. There is no time for delay. There's no time for further haggling. The deal is there. They should take it.
As Hamas considers the deal, Israel continues daily raids on Gaza. Hamas want a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops and a lasting ceasefire. Israel has vowed to attack Rafah, which they say is Hamas's last stronghold. As Blinken met with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, head of the Israeli Armed Forces, Herzi Halevi, said the offensive will go from strength to strength. Gallant took Blinken to a kibbutz attacked by Hamas on October 7th. Survivors spoke of their experiences. Many know some of the 120 hostages still being held by Hamas. Blinken also got his first glimpse into Gaza since the war began. With tank fire echoing in the distance, the top US diplomat saw this inspection and crossing point. With food trucks behind them, discussions were held on how more aid can enter the Strip, with Gazans facing starvation. David Garrett, TVB News.
Welcome back. Turkish police detained 217 people Wednesday after tear gas and rubber bullets were used to stop protesters reaching Taksim Square, the traditional focal point of Mayday rallies in Istanbul. In Greece, France, and other countries across Europe and some in Asia, Mayday marches took place, calling for better working conditions and greater labor rights. Tracy Furness has more.
Police in Istanbul clashed with protesters who were trying to reach the central Taksim Square on Wednesday in defiance of a government ban on marking Labor Day at the landmark location. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government has long declared the square off limits to demonstrations on security grounds, but the square holds symbolic value. In 1977, gunmen opened fire on a May Day celebration at Taksim, causing a stampede that killed 34 people. Tear gas and rubber bullets were fired to disperse the thousands of people who tried to break through police barricades to reach the square. Clashes ensued, and arrests were made. In Greece, several thousand protesters joined May Day marches as organised strikes disrupted public transport and the national rail service.
This is a day of struggle of the working class internationally. We oppose our government, that is a government that with privatization, by closing the border.
Similar scenes in France as protesters took to the streets of Paris, led by union leaders seeking better pay and working conditions. Pro-Palestinian groups and anti-Olympics activists also joined the march through the French capital, which will host the Summer Games in less than 3 months. But marches later turned to clashes, with riot police in Paris firing tear gas. In Taiwan, Labor Day protesters took to the streets of Taipei, calling on the government to create better conditions for workers. This protester, representing the cement industry, is calling for a decrease in overtime hours and enough holidays. He is asking for 7 days that the government took from the industry. In Sri Lanka, tens of thousands paraded in the capital Colombo carrying red flags and banners. May Day celebrations came as the country is struggling to emerge from its worst economic crisis. The island declared bankruptcy in 2022, being more than $83 billion in debt.
We've got a tremendous future, but it's important that Sri Lanka stays on this path, a path of good governance and a completion of the reform program.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Some mainland tourists coming to the city during the Labor Day Golden Week holidays said they want to visit local universities. But some universities had been swamped with tourists in the past during mainland holidays. The University of Hong Kong has rolled out a new quota system on visitors. Tourists wishing to enter the Hong Kong U campus between 8 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Monday to Saturday have to make prior bookings, but they won't be required to do so if they visit at night, on Sundays, or public holidays. But some tourists who didn't know about the need for registration expressed disappointment after being barred from entering. Thanks for watching. Good night.